Welcome to Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and tonight our special guest is Craig Campobasso. But before we start, I want to thank all of you for joining us, for being in our audience, whether you're live or whether you are out in Zoom land. If you're watching us through the Conscious Awakening Network on YouTube or Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, or if you're watching us on a replay, thank you so much for being here, because tonight you are in for a treat. I also want to give a big thank you to our special guest, Craig, for being here. And I want to tell you just a little bit about him before we jump into his presentation. I do want to remind you, if I were you, I would have a pen and pencil handy to take some notes because he's going to share tons of information with us tonight. But Craig is the author of 7 published books. Craig's mother, Marie Donna King Campobasso, told him that from the time she was pregnant with him, she knew that he was going to become a writer, and he fulfilled that prophecy when he was 26, after he had a life-changing spiritual awakening, which, Craig, I hope you're going to tell us about that too. So that's when the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga book series was born. Now, his passion to write stories that provoke the reader to think, to raise consciousness, to expand their mind about creation, while still entertaining in a Hollywood tradition. And tonight he's going to talk to us about his book, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, the ultimate guide to greys, reptilians, hybrids, and Nordics, which is a bestseller on Amazon, and it was released January the 1st, 2021. Now, Craig is currently making the ET Almanac into a documentary, and he will be bringing the ET to life that are in his book through CGI computer generation images. His latest book, the UFO Hotspot Compendium, and All the Places to Visit Before You Die or Are Abducted, was released in October of 2022. Craig, it's such an honor and a pleasure to have you joining us tonight. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your being here, and I'd like to go ahead and to bring you on up.
All right, there we go. So,
hey,
how are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's like it was a nice cool morning, and now it's hot this afternoon. I've got like all the fans and everything running because I'm boiling,
Wow.
but it's okay. You know, such problems to have living in California.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here under a heated blanket right now. It's kind of snow sleeting out here at 10,000 feet. So we have just a little bit of a different atmosphere. But Craig, I'm so excited that you're going to be here with us tonight and sharing all of your knowledge. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of let you start talking, and then I will, I'm going to be making some notes and asking you some questions.
Sure.
And one of the things I did mention that if, and I don't know if this is personal or if you even want to share it, but I really would like for you to talk to us a little bit about your life-changing spiritual event.
Yes, I will. You know what I'll do is I'll kind of go into a little bit about that, and then how the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial books came about. I'll give you guys a little bit of info about the ET Almanac, and then I'll go into the latest book, the UFO Hotspot Compendium, give you guys some little gems about that book and that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
So I basically tell everyone I've been in the film business since I was 15. I just loved it. I was lucky enough to get a job on the original Dune that David Lynch directed, and I ended up working on that film for 4 years. So if you guys are very big Dune fans, I can answer all your questions. I'm actually in a recent documentary on that film, which is called The Sleeper Must Awaken. You could just type that in. You can only rent it online. And then there's a man named Max Every, Evry. He interviewed all of us for a brand new book that's coming out in September, I believe, based all on Dune. And this is the very first time David Lynch has come out and spoke about Dune since its release. So I was very excited about that. And so I can't wait to read the book. But anyway, basically what happened is I worked on that. I worked on Dune for a long time. We worked on Conan the Destroyer at the same time, shooting both films at Estudios Churubusco in Mexico City. And then when that was over, I sort of moved into casting actors. The producer asked me what I liked the best. I said that. So she put me on her next film, Taipan. And from there, I went over to Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories and was there for a season and a half. And I say when that series ended is when my own amazing story began, which basically in a nutshell was, and mind you, I am not awake at this time. I'm the guy that goes out on the weekend with his friends, goes to work during the week, doing the same humdrum thing that you do when you're in your early 20s and that kind of thing. And so all of a sudden I had a dream with 3 universal master teachers. 2 of them did not look human, although they were not frightening. And one was a female. And I just woke up and I just thought, oh my God, there was such love emanating from these beings. And then I forgot about it. But it kept reoccurring for several months. And then the next several months after that is I would have the dream, then I would wake up in the dream and be alert in my physical body saying, oh, this is real. I'm now where they are, right? And that went on for a couple of months. And then the third phase was I would go through the first 2 phases, and then the third phase would be I would open my eyes in my bedroom and they would be standing in their astral bodies at the foot of my bed. So I realized that this was real, but I didn't understand what it was. But then after that, I was back in their realm, and they had their palms all out like this, and they fed this gold light with these little white stars in it into my auric field. And I remembered waking up feeling in this nirvanic state, and I just couldn't believe, I mean, it felt so incredible. So what that is they were waking up my cellular memory to my cosmic heritage. And so over the next 8 months, what happened is everything I saw the beauty of the creation of it, right? Like the beauty that somebody created in a ladybug, in a plant, and in a person. And I could start reading people's soul history. And mind you, I had my casting office on Sunset Boulevard at the time, and when I would have actors in, I could read their entire soul history, and I would have to sob. I have to excuse myself, and I would go into another room and I would sob uncontrollably because to me it was so beautiful. And so I sobbed every day, anywhere from 8 to 12 times for an 8-month period, and I never thought it was going to stop, right? And then after that phase, the next phase was waking up my light body so I could travel to other worlds and start learning not only after a while learning, going there in my in my dreams, which were really going there in my going there in person in my astral body, but then as I was walking around in my daily life, I could feel my soul going there and learning more, right? And being in two places at one time. So there were many things that came to this awakening process. During this 2-year awakening process, the male, he was I would refer to him more as an ultra terrestrial. And oh, I have to tell you about the one experience that I did have with him, because it's so beautiful. Um, I was meditating one day on my couch, and it was like noon. I had all the windows open, and it was just one of those perfect weather days where, it feels so good against your skin. And so they would come to me, what I would call the mind internet. So when I would meditate, all of a sudden, like I'm looking at you, in my inner eyelids, they would appear. I would get a click at the back of my neck. It would sound like this, just like that. And then they would appear. Sometimes they would say something. Sometimes they would just smile. Sometimes they would just um, send love through looking at you and that kind of thing. So he came in, and he said, I'm going to give you a metaphor, and I want you to open up your eyes and write it down. And he gave me the metaphor, and I said, okay. But I was so deep in this meditation that I didn't come out, because I was feeling so good. It's that kind of meditation where you get the white dove in your forehead, which Paramahansa Yogananda said, when you reach that, you have reached the highest state in meditation, right? So then I realized I forgot to write it down, and I begged him to come back, and he did. And he gave it to me again. And what he said is the truth of the triangle is the power of the pyramid. So I opened my eyes, but what was before me was his soul, which I can't, if I take my arms and extend them out this much, it still goes out further. And his whole energy was like this, like this. And there were big ovals of prismatic gold, like rainbow golds in these prisms. And I was like frozen, because it was like, oh my God, he's like right there. And I had a portal in my living room, one at the end of my bed and one in my hallway, and I knew where they were and when they would come down, right? And then he went and he danced all around my living room, and then he went right up the portal. So it was such an incredible experience. So after these 2 years, I had written a book just about those experiences, and I felt I felt good about it, and I took a trip to Mount Shasta, and when I returned, I had a very major experience there. But when I returned, he said to me, "What would you say if I told you you wrote that book for yourself?" And I said, then I've learned a lot about myself. And he says, well, now it's time to actually write the books that you came here to write. And I want you to just start writing, and don't stop, don't edit, keep going and going and going until there is no more. And that is going to be the writing process, right? And so that's what I did. They woke me up at 3 a.m. every morning. They're still doing it because I'm still writing. And I would write in the wee hours, because they said everyone's brain waves are low, and that it's easier for them to send the information through. Now it's very, now all these years later, it's so exciting because, I just go sit at the computer, I have no idea what's going to come out. And then I'm like, oh my God, so I say my writing books is like reading a book. I just get to read it first, right? That's how cool it was. So this is the first book. It's called The Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga. It's about a Pleiadian man named Tehran. That's him there. This is well, I can't show you that because that's for the new book. But anyway, and basically it's the book is hard to explain because I knew nothing about duality, and these beings taught me about duality. They took me along the journey in writing the books because Tehran, even though he's in a fully conscious society, they explained to me that in every 200,000 births, that somebody up there is born dualistic because they can, it's good for the fully conscious beings to be around dualistic beings because they're not around them to understand them, and vice versa. So there's a lot of learning that can go on here.
What do you mean by dualistic?
Dualistic means that you have the right to choose between right and wrong. So it's your light, it's your dark, it's your choices. If you make a bad choice, if you make an angry choice towards someone, if you make a vengeful choice, a revenge choice, that there's going to be consequences, right? So in other words, it's really learning how to tailor your emotions so that you're no longer fighting and struggling within your own self, right? So this is the journey that Tehran goes on, and the reader gets to discover through books 1 and 3. There's 4 books in the series now. There'll be 7 in total. I'm finishing up a prequel book now, and that you get to go along his journey and how he becomes fully conscious. So the reader learns how they can also become fully conscious. So it's that duality, and then in the universal scheme of things, it's the greater duality between Michael and Lucifer, and you get to learn that whole story in the book series, which is, I will tell you, the most fascinating, unbelievable story. I couldn't really, wait to write all of those bits because I thought there were only 2 scenarios that can happen, and that's not what happened.
Right.
So, which is quite amazing. So that's how those books came into being. The website is Autobiography of an ANET.com. The books are on the front cover. Anybody that orders them off the website, I'll personalize and sign them for you. And the ET Almanac and the Hotspot and a few other things I have. If you click in the tab under other books, those will come up there, and I'll sign those for everybody as well. So anyway, my former agent, who now was a publisher, came to me and said, I want you to write a book for MUFON Books. And he goes, I have the title of it, and it's called The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. And I went, oh, I could write that book because of all the ET experiences. And I've been into ufology. I've met tons of contactees, hybrids, everything you can think of. And So I went and he said I could sell this book. And he said, write a proposal. I did. And he sold it in 4 days. And I found myself writing it the following week. I couldn't believe it happened that fast.
Yeah.
Right? No, nothing happens. I mean, if any of you are writers, you know that does not happen, right? So anyway, so what I did was is I went to the real contactees. I went to the publishers who had those books as well, got permission to uh, retell a more thumbnail story. Some of the contactees lent me pictures of the extraterrestrials that they took. I spoke with lots of hybrids and all of that. So that's how that book was put together. It's actually through real contactee cases, which is the bulk of them, others through very well-known hybrids, and then also channeling, which was a lot of stuff that I had done myself. So in the back of the ET Species Almanac, under further reading, a lot of those books are no longer in circulation, but there's one place that has them. So I give the reader that place, because if you want to read about a whole contactee case, then you could go right to that website. You can buy them, right, in a PDF format. So anyway, that was cool. And another thing that was interesting during the time that I was writing that book, I got a phone call from a genealogist in Canada, and she said, I'm your fourth or fifth cousin on your mother's father's side, and I'm looking for information. And so I gave it to her, and then I connected her to two of my mom's sisters. And I said, look, I said, my mom told me when I was 12 that my father was my stepfather and that I had a biological father. And they weren't together long. I'm not going to go into their drama, but I said, could you find him? I said, all I have is a name, and that he was in, some sort of military service. That's all I know. And he probably would have been born around this time, and et cetera. And she goes, oh yeah, I can find anyone. I was already in the system, by the way, DNA wise. And anyway, she called me back and she said, I'm sorry to say he passed in 2006, but this is where he's buried, which was Forest Lawn across from Warner Brothers. So I went down there the next morning. I went up to the front desk and I said, do you have a name of the person that called when you guys picked up his body? And they looked it up and they go, oh yeah, we actually do. We don't have a phone number though. And I said, no, I'll take the name. I went and I visited his grave site. And then I came home, I looked the man up, and he was 74 years old, a different last name than my bio father. And he lived around the corner from me. So there was no number. So I wrote him a letter and I stuck my picture in there and said, if you know anybody in his family, can you, pass it along. 2 days later, I got a phone call from his son. And his son said, yeah, my dad got your letter. And I said, oh, was he friends with Fred? And he said, no, it's actually his half brother. And I said, oh, wow. So you're like my cousin. And he goes, yeah. He goes, this is really weird. But he said, normally, you would ignore something like this, but you are a carbon copy of him. And I said, well, I have no idea because I've never seen a picture of him. Right. So I got together for dinner with them, which was 3 hours of me just saying, tell me everything you know. An hour into the conversation, his brother, my uncle, who looked at me the whole time like this, he was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it, because you look just like him. You're the same height. It's it's like, I'm so mad at him for never telling us. And he goes, yeah, well, when he was 17, he wanted to go into the Air Guards. So our mom had to sign him in. And then when he was 18, they put him in the Air Force. And he goes, oh, yeah, he was in that thing called Project Blue Book. I went, what? And he goes, yeah, do you know what that is? And I go, uh-huh. And anyway, he has since given me, his honorable discharge papers, his dog tags, all those things, all that stuff. Of course, I had him go do his DNA, and of course, it connected me and him, immediately. And so I've done some checking around, and we kind of thought maybe he was a paper pusher for a general, but that is not looking the case in the investigations that we've been doing. So I just thought that was very interesting, and so I dedicated the ET Almanac to him. That's a picture of him when he was in the Air Guard.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was cool. And then after this became very popular, I got a few calls from production companies that wanted to make it into a documentary. And I thought, well, I made the short film Stranger at the Pentagon, which is all these posters behind me. And I'm raising the money to make the feature film now. And so I what did I say right before that? I just went out of my head. Who's
That you were
listening?
raising money
Right before
for,
that. Right before that.
right before that. Ugh.
Okay, come on, Don. None of you are paying attention.
I was paying attention, but I was writing too.
That's okay. It'll come back to me. It always does. So anyway, oh, that's what it was. So so I thought, well, why don't I'll do the documentary? And I contacted 3 of my documentary friends, and so we've all won awards, and so we're hopefully it'll be released by the end of the year or early next year. Of course, it's just called the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, the documentary. And I was able to get the contactees, one big contactee who lives in a very remote village in the middle of nowhere, where we had to send people in for the interview, and hybrids. And I mean, it is so fascinating. I can't even tell you. Yeah, it will give you guys a very big overview of things. So been working on that, and then then MUFON came back to me to write another book, which is the UFO Hotspot Compendium. And I said, well, how do you guys want to go about that? And so what we did is we had the head of MUFON send out letters to all the state directors and ask them to nominate their favorite hotspots. And then I compiled them all. I had a few of my own. And so I began writing the book. And what's interesting is that I'll give you guys what because I love books that do this. So I did it, and the publisher didn't give me any backlash. So you get the when, the where, so you get the dates. You get the story, which is in depth. You get photographs, which lots have not been seen before or not even on the internet. And then you get the things to do when you visit the site. So you get all the information for the site, for instance, like Giant Rock and the Integratron, right? Anybody been there? Yeah? No? Oh my God, you guys gotta go. You gotta go. Oh, I know you went
I
because
went.
you went with Miss Michelle. So anyway, I give you like the historian for the Giant Rock, who you can hire as a guide who will take you out on a night watch, right? And give you the history of it. She even said to me, after I wrote every chapter, if I was working with a MUFON person or what's the other one? Jesus. Project Blue Book files and things like that. Um, you know, what we would do is figure out what you get whatever their latest findings on the case are from. You get like the old Project Blue Book and then MUFON's recent findings on what it was, and some of the cases that were reopened as well. Places that you can visit that are cool around there, things to do when you're there, and then the sources as well. I love people that list sources. I didn't do it in the ET Almanac because they didn't want me to, but on this one I did, so people can go in there and actually see where a lot of these things came from. So, like for instance, with the Integratron, the sisters that own it, of course, are friends of mine, and they opened up all their files to me of lots of really, really incredible information. I was one of the last people to interview Daniel Boone, who was married to one of their daughters, and he actually saw the ship that morning when Salganda of the Nushin, I believe it was in 53, landed in the middle of the night when George was running the airport, and talked to him and asked him if he wanted to see the inside of his ship. He went in and he met 3 or 4 other male crew members. They were all like 5'6", just looked like average Joes. And I actually took a lot of interviews that George did because he never described Salganda in one full interview. He would say this in one interview, this in another interview. So I did that. And then I had an artist do a conception of what Salganda would look like and put that also in the book. So Salganda eventually gave him the blueprints on how to build the Integratron, which was a rejuvenation machine, which is how they stay looking young. I think Salganda, I forget, I have his age in there. It was hundreds of years old. Which, this was happening in 53. Valiant Thor came in 57 and basically brought the same type of information for cellular rejuvenation, all different kinds of things to help the planet, free energy, how to eliminate sickness and disease, all of those things. So we noticed that a lot of these human extraterrestrials were coming in the early 50s, mid 50s, with information like that. So I would say that's definitely one of my favorite hotspots. One of my other favorite hotspots, of course, is Sedona. I actually caught a scout ship, a metallic round scout ship, traveling away from Bell Rock, coming down the road, and I was driving towards it, and I was able to grab my phone and nab 2 pictures of it. So I put that in the UFO Hotspot book as well. In 98, when I was on Bell Rock, and a friend was just taking pictures of me. gigantic orbs, like giant orbs the size that came up to my shoulder, right?
Oh,
Like really big, but they were, all of them had different designs in them and that kind of thing. And one of them was actually bumped up against my entire body, and there was a sliver of a white wisp that was coming out and was actually stuck inside my arm. I put a picture of one of the orbs, not the one with me in the orb, but in the book. And I gave those to very famous psychics along the years, the first of which was Sylvia Brown. And she says, "Oh, honey, those are angels. Those are angels. That's angel soul spirit." Right. And everyone I gave it to all said the same thing. When we were filming the short film Stranger at the Pentagon, we also filmed those giant orbs in the soundstage, and we would get orb storms in some of them where you would get
really?
orb after orb after orb after orb. They were all laid on top of one another. There were so many of them in there, right? You know, it was really, really fascinating. And, you know, the man that was playing Eisenhower and the gentleman that played Valiant Thor, um, they weren't really clicking with it yet. And, and so I just sort of did a little silent prayer. And all of a sudden, I saw that all of a sudden they were overlit from above,
Hmm.
and then it was just perfection from there on, which I thought was very cool. So, but one of the places though I'm going to tell you about is really fascinating, which is just outside of Sedona in the Verde Valley. It's a place called the Bradshaw Ranch. It's an old movie ranch. Bob Bradshaw ran a camera shop up in town, and he bought like 140,000 acres in the Verde Valley. And so he would rent it to movie studios to film their movies there. Elvis Presley filmed a movie there, Joan Crawford, other famous Western stars. Um, and then what he also did on the side is he started creating Western shows, and he would bring in stuntmen and things from you know, neighboring cities, and they would do covered wagon shows and things of that nature. And they built a saloon so, you know, people could have dinner and do all kinds of things like that and make it an experience. Now, here's the cool thing. One of my friends who's in her 80s now worked there.
Hmm.
So I heard all of the firsthand ET, Bigfoot stuff directly from her. And then I met Tom Dongo, who is a UFO investigator in Sedona for many years, who actually investigated the property for 4 straight years with Linda Bradshaw, Bob's wife.
Hmm.
Now, during this time, now my friend who worked there told me about an albino female Bigfoot that Linda used to feed vegetables and fruit to, and that the Bigfoot would gift her with little sticks and stones and things like that on the plate. And she told me that she would not work there when it got dark. And because it's so isolated, you really, if you don't know how to get there, you'll never find it on your own, right? Because you're going through washes and all kinds of things. So one day I was there visiting her, and she goes, "Well, do you want to go out to the ranch?" And it's, you know, it's abandoned at this point. And I said, "Yeah, I do. I really want to see it." So we went out there. We could only drive so far because we didn't have a 4-wheel drive, and we had to hike in about 40 minutes. And when I've been sensitive ever since I was a child, and sensing spirit, other things around you. And as we were walking down the wash, I could just feel the multi dimensions opening up. I could feel things looking at us. I was never more uncomfortable. Everything in my body told me to turn around, run, and get the heck out of there, right? And but then here's my friend, trudging, 80-year-old woman trudging, come on, let's go. And I'm like, I don't know if we should go any further. Oh, come on, let's do it. Right. So we did. I saw the ranch from the outside and that kind of thing. And then I learned about all the other things. I visited it one more time since then. But Tom Dongo really, man, he told some stories, man. I'll give you guys a few little thumbnails of some of the things. Bob Bradshaw in the beginning was out on his property and a ship landed in front of him. He flipped, he turned around, he went back in his house and he said, I never want anything to do with these things, right? So he would never do anything when his wife investigated it. His wife had a son who was living with them in his early 20s at the time. And so the first strange thing is, so next to the ranch house that they built is an old 2-bedroom sort of house that was built with rock. And then further down on the property by the horse corrals further down is where the homestead house is, which is the oldest living homestead in Sedona area. And so he was there with his girlfriend and their young daughter. And at 3 a.m., he awoke to lights. He looked out the window. A ship had landed and grays were roaming the property. Well, mind you, he flipped out. His girlfriend woke up. She flipped out. And they kept peeking out to see when the coast was clear to run, get in the car and hightail it up to the big ranch, right? Because, you have to remember that little homestead house really is in the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, nowhere land. And so they found an opportunity. They got up. He went and woke his mother up, told them the story. They're all sitting in the living room. And then a gray walks by the front windows, right? And Linda had no fear. She ran to the door, opened it, and it was walking this way and it just disappeared, right? Another night, they were out. They were in the living room. They heard the dogs barking outside. They went outside and they were barking, looking up at something, and they heard hissing, but they didn't see anything. So they just got the dogs in. The next day they went out and they found reptilian footprints, which they have photographs of as well. Tom has them in his book. Yeah, exactly. Another night when they were filming things, there was just a small group of them. He photographed a man who wasn't there.
Yeah. How did he do that?
He was just taking photos, and this man's like partial of his face was in the photo. He let me put that in the UFO hotspot, right?
Oh,
so
cool.
That's in there. And by that same man who wasn't there, by his leg was a little minuscule spaceship that had little spikes of blue light, right? Which I found fascinating. And then when her son would go out and film things, when they look through the viewfinder, they would be looking into another dimension. It wasn't what was in front of them. Once they saw a dinosaur. Another time there was a telephone pole where a telephone pole wasn't. Another time there were pigs. Now there's no pigs in Sedona. There's javelinas, but they're not pigs, right? Another night, the son was coming home with a buddy of his, driving through that frightening wash because there's just, there's bushes on both sides, and if something came out to get you, you're trapped, right? This creature walked out. Let me see where I have it. This creature walked out that was like a miniature horse with a horse's tail and a cat's face.
Hmm.
And it stopped in the middle of the road. It looked at him, and then it walked again into the bushes. And at the same time, in another state, someone had spotted the same creature.
Now, do you know where that creature comes from?
We don't. No, Tom didn't know either. So this is what I'm saying, is that place is a multi-dimensional vortex, right? People who go by, if they go and sit by the windmill or stand by the windmill, they'll have missing time, like 3 hours of missing time, and they don't know where they were, right? The fascinating thing is when Linda discovered the Bigfoot prints, she decided to test it and put out fruit and vegetable to see if it would eat it. She didn't know it was a woman at the time, a female. And she did. And so she continued to do that. And she would leave her gifts, Linda gifts. And then at a certain point, she started drawing diagrams in the sand by the thing, and Linda would try and figure out what they meant. And another time she laid on her side and made an imprint of her body to show Linda that she was pregnant. And Linda's mare was pregnant, and she would find white hairs on her stomach, right? And she didn't know where they were coming from. But then they figured out, so she called her Big Girl, right? She called her Big Girl. And Tom had called her and said, really beware, because either Greys or reptilians or something are stealing the fetuses of mares on other ranches. So be careful with your mare. So she really believed that Big Girl saved her mare's baby. She did have her baby, and everything was fine. And then Linda would find, Big Girl's footprints and then her baby's footprints as well. Now, here's an interesting thing. The son, when he was using the video camera, went into another dimension, and above there was a silver saucer, and below was Big Girl, albino, white fur, Big Girl walking, right? So I recently had a conversation with Ronnie LeBlanc, who stars on Bigfoot Expedition on Travel Channel. And I said, I've often wondered, you guys are always seeing these lights spark. You know that they're there, you're hearing them, they're knocking, they're doing all of that. I said, but could those lights be them going in and out of a dimension? And he said, yes, I've often thought that as well. So I really believe, if you do get to visit there, I do have someone that you guys can, in the book, contact, who actually is an abductee. She's very much into this info. She will take you out to the ranch as well, or take you night sky watching. She has about 5 or 6 night vision binoculars. So if you are brave enough to go to Bradshaw Ranch at night,
I want to do it.
well, I would go with a group of people, but I wouldn't go with like 2 or 3, right? So anyway, that to me was one of the most interesting places. Of course, the place that I saw tons of activity is in Sedona, but also at ET Ranch. There, I mean, that place is like an airport, right? And you see them going in and out of the mountain and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of thing, which was just fascinating. And I've got some great hotspots up in Canada. If anybody likes to know about that, this is probably a hotspot nobody's going to go to, but I put it in there anyway. It's Raymond Fowler, who wrote about the Andreessen affair, which was one of my favorite contactee books. He wrote a book called The Allagash Abductions, about 4 guys that only 2 people could fit in a small plane, and it takes you into a remote lake in Maine, and then with your gear. So they each had to take, they had to take 2 planes for 4 guys. They got in a canoe, and then what you do is you just canoe to different islands, you fish, you're in the middle of nowhere. There are other campers. You could be on an island and nobody else is there. And so this one night, they saw a big, giant, glowing orb in the sky, and they didn't know what it was, right? And then the next night, they lit a big, giant fire so it would, go way up high so they could find their way back to camp because they went fishing. And they saw that light again. And one of the guys said, "Oh, there it is. Let's see what happens when I flash my flashlight at it." And they did, right? And then the only thing that they remembered was going back to their campsite, and the fire was really low. Mm. And it kind of just got erased from their memory. They didn't think anything of it until many, many years later. 2 of the guys were twins, and they both started having memories of it, and terrifying memories of ant beings that had abducted them. And so they did some regressions, right? And they didn't harm them or anything like that. But interestingly enough, what they found, 3 of the guys had experiences. One did not, and did not believe that it happened. But the others were given these sort of supernatural abilities in exchange for that abduction. Now, there is lots of talk about these ant beings that are very benevolent, and that the military is in contact with, and they're exchanging seeds, they're exchanging different things. The military has gone in and met with them, and evidently they used to live on the surface long time ago. And it's said that maybe at the time of the destruction of Atlantis and that kind of stuff, that they went underground. So,
and isn't it interesting that the Hopi talk about at the end of the Third World that they went underneath to live with the ant people?
Yes. So I have a I have a whole section on the ant people in the documentary. So, cool. Yeah, really fascinating stuff. So anyway, so there's some of that. I know I've droned on long enough, so why don't we see if anybody has any questions?
Yeah, I'm sure that they do, but can I ask you, could you go ahead and tell people the name of your website so that if they want to order your books?
Yes. So you could get the Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga. There's 4 books in the series at Autobiography of an ANET.com. If you want to get all 4 books, you just click one button to get all 4, or you can just order the first book and start with that. And then if you want the UFO Hotspot or the ET Species Almanac, it's the same website. Just click other tab in the tab, and it'll go to that page, and you can order them there, right? Look, if anybody wants to order more than one book, so you're not paying shipping, 2 and 3 times. You can email me and say, I want to get this book, and that book. My email's craigcampobasso@gmail.com, or you can email me through the website, right? You could do it that way too. Just make sure you tell me who you want me to sign it to. I do a little personal greeting and all that good stuff. And then Stranger at the Pentagon, strangeratthepentagon.com. You can watch a short film there. You can also watch it on Amazon Prime. I do have all of Dr. Frank's out of print books there: Stranger at the Pentagon, Outwitting Tomorrow, which Valiant Thor was an advisor on. By the way, only thing he ever wrote. So yes, no, all those things on Amazon are not written by Valiant Thor. They were old books from the 50s that after I made the short film, they put Valiant Thor's name on, right? Because a short film went like crazy throughout, because people always say, oh, I've read all the books he wrote. And I'm like, yeah, no, he didn't write those books.
Yeah.
So, we have the posters there as well. You could get everything, all of Dr. Frank's books, the DVD of the short film with extras, and all 4 posters for like $120 on the website, which is a really great deal. So all the money goes to help support the funding of the feature film, right? So, I'm raising the money for that. So if any of you know millionaires or billionaires, send them my way, please.
Good. Yeah. All right.
So that way we can get that out there. So yes, thank you for that. All right. Why don't you ask the first question, Sheila?
Well, I just wanted to go back and initially you were talking about when you were young that you were doing the lucid dreaming and the astral travel, that type of thing, which of course is all, 4D activities.
Yes.
Were you being taught that by your guides, or was it just something that came naturally to you?
It just happened. It wasn't anything that I know I willed or anything like that. Of course, I realized after I was awake that this was, all part of why I came here. I've always felt that I wasn't from here, like most people, right? And lots of my friends throughout the years were always terrified that my good ET friends were going to come and take me home with them. I mean, I'm not kidding. A lot of my friends had those fears.
I'm sure.
Right? They really had those fears because they really didn't understand what was happening. A lot of them do now. One still doesn't have a clue, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So because some people, it's just it will rock their belief system too much. So that kind of thing. So let's see, what is that? Oh yes, the Alpha Centauri system. Well, we know about the contacts with lots of beings from lots of men from South America. Eduardo Gonzalez, Sixto Paz. There's a man that lives close to me who's Brazilian, who I've spoken with. Ricardo took a group out to Mount Shasta several years ago. One of my best friends went, and they were told that some of them were going to meet on Terral, who is a 8-foot Alpha Centaurian. They're in the ET Almanac book. Ricardo approved me putting all the information in, and we were able to use the renderings that Ricardo did with an artist on Terral and Ivica, his mate. And anyway, they went out, and there was probably 100 people. And so they all meditated together, and then they got up and they started chanting together, because you have to set the tone for them to come. And then they started singing and just doing happy, joyous things. And then at night, Entourage ship came up and over. They were out in Sand Flats, which is a big open area surrounded by pine trees. And it lit up the whole forest. My friend said it was the most beautiful thing to see, this blue light just lighting up the entire forest floor with this ship right above it. And then there were, I believe they had been pre-picked by Entourage. So Ricardo brought, it was either 6 or 7 people into the actual forest, and they would meet Entourage and others in what is called a Zendra. Now, a Zendra is a interdimensional portal, but it's different than what we would think of a portal. It's not projected images. They're actually standing there. If they invited you to walk over the threshold, if they were on their ship, you would be on their ship, right? Sixto Paz has taken over 100 trips with them. Yes. And we interview him in the documentary. I mean, his information is mind-blowing, just mind-blowing. So, and they were in there for about 20 minutes. There was a gentleman that snuck in there who was not, from what I understand, spiritually evolved. He was just curious. And from what I understand, it really affected him and his psyche. And he said, as each person came out, he said, Ricardo sent everyone back to base camp. He said, I stayed in the out in the middle of Sand Flats. He said I was about 100 feet away, and I just watched. And I watched them come out one by one. And he said it was like what Moses must have been like after seeing the burning bush. He said they were all like frozen, they were mesmerized, and they all said the same exact thing, right? And then they all discussed it the next day. Now, Entourage has been visiting lots of people there, and the Alpha Centaurians love to really help poor communities. They're sort of like their next of kin in a lot of these remote villages. They just know them as their friends because when there's no water, their crops don't grow and they die because they can't eat. So they make sure that that happens. There's no medicine, so they help them as well. And they supposedly have a little sort of yellow paste that helps to cure whatever is going on. So they're very benevolent, and they really, really, they're one of the first races like this besides the Clarions, which are also a human race. This is, let me show you. This is Nelfa. She's a Clarion being. This was taken by the contactee. You're going to learn all about them in the documentary. And look at that face, right?
It's beautiful.
Look at that face. She is an astrobiologist and chronoastronomy, which means she works the calibrations between the dimensions to make sure that there is a perfect equilibrium. Right? So we have a lot of these human races here really trying to help us.
Now, where was she from?
Clarion. It's a planet. It's it's not far from here. The planet's called Clarion and the race is called Clarion. They have a society that is very mixed races of all different colors from all over the universe in their society. They all get along. They're all in perfect harmony with each other, just like the Galactic Kingdom. They all share everything. Right? You have to remember the one thing that I learned, especially going through my awakening process, is when they share with you and they speak to you telepathically, they're also sharing with you their feeling body. So I get to experience what they were feeling at the time something happened. And so you become almost like a first person experiencer with that. And you therefore see the beauty behind their learning and lesson as well. And this is the way it is across the galactic kingdom. That's why there are no secrets, right? Here it's everything is, the exact opposite. It's dualistic. People hide their feelings. People don't show their true emotions. They get angry, they get this, they get that, but all of that works because if you think of the dualistic design to bring people into full consciousness, it's really quite brilliant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you've gone through this whole path of lifetimes and things that really have helped shape your experience for you to therefore become a part of the galactic kingdom and be with people who are embraced in unconditional love, right? Like up there, if somebody was feeling sad, they sense it, they stop what they're doing, and they tend to that person until they're feeling better. That's how it works up there, even if it's a stranger to them.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I have two more questions, and then I promise, guys, I'll open it up and let you ask some questions. But the two questions that I have is first, now in the ET Almanac, you have, I don't know how many different races that are listed.
82.
82. I knew it was a lot. I've got the book. I love it. I wanted to ask you, have you encountered most of those beings, or how did you come up with the listing that you used?
Well, like I said, I've been studying this for a very long time. So I've read all of even the obscure contactee books, that kind of thing. So I contacted either the contactees or their publishers to be able to bring that story back into the the present fold, because a lot of these stories are from the 50s and 60s and things of that nature. Now, of course, for me, Pleiadians are my thing, the beings that are the ultra-terrestrials, which actually are from the very first universe on the very first planet created, where the great I am is. And those were two of the beings that came and raised me, as I say. And so that information is there. And and then just beings that I've been curious about, like astral traveling and seeing a giant mantis and wondering what the heck was that, right? And I asked so many other people, because at least people that are having these experiences usually will see a feline person first, which I did. I also saw a feline in the very beginning, right? And I was like, wow, those are like cool looking beings, right? And mantis, and I realized that every investigator, every person I talked to, nobody knew anything about the mantis beings, right? I talked to Yvonne Smith. She said they're lurking in the background in all of the abduction cases. I talked to Barbara Lamb. They both talk about this also in the documentary, which they're fascinating. Talk about things that go on, and she didn't really know what their function was. And, I had had a friend for a very long time, and I had no idea she was a mantis hybrid. So there you go. So that's where that came from, because I was just like, God, I just gotta, give it to the people. I chose 82 races because I I had a whole lot more to put in, but Paul Hellyer said that he knew of 82 races visiting Earth. And I thought, well, let me see if I can honor him and put in 82 races. And it just fit with the page count that the publisher wanted. So that's why I put that in.
Awesome. And then the last question about, gosh, I don't know, 12, 14 years ago on YouTube, there was a video circulating about a woman that they had found in a pod in space, and they called her basically the extraterrestrial Mona Lisa. Did you ever see that video?
I've seen it, and it is such a compelling piece, the pictures and all of that. And I mean, that's all I know. I don't know anything else about it.
I was just wondering, do you think just from looking at her with the dark hair and the features that she had, do you think possibly she could have been a Taigetan? Palladian Taigetan?
Well, you have to remember there's so many human races.
Right.
And just like us, they're a mixture of all the different races, right? So,
Right.
I mean, Pleiadian planets, just not Caucasian as we're used to seeing for Nordics.
Exactly.
They're blue, they're brown, they're a mixture of all the different colors. When you get into, Dr. Frank used to talk about when he visited the starship with Valiant Thor on some occasions, that he said the colors of skin would blow your mind. He said, I even saw people who had zebra pattern skin. And I said, you're kidding. He goes, people have rainbow skin. Every color we can think of, they have. And then if they mix colors with, man and woman, and different colors come out and all of that. And I always thought that was interesting. And I heard, I don't know, I was flicking through the internet one day and I heard Linda Moulton Howe talking about a woman she met who was in contact with beings that had zebra pattern skin. So there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Well, thank you for indulging all of my questions, Craig and audience. So now I'll go ahead and open it up. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Craig, I see that Susan has one question in the chat. And she said,
Sure.
Are these beings that you encounter malevolent or benevolent?
Benevolent for sure. Oh, completely benevolent.
Okay, great. Okay, that's all the only question that I see in the chat. Hey, Bridget, do you have any questions from our Awake and Ascending family out there in Clubhouse land?
I'm trying to unmute.
Oh,
there you go. Okay, then we'll go to Ross
Hi.
after that.
Yeah.
Hi.
So we don't have any questions in the chat, but I would love, Craig, if you could, I don't know if it's in your wheelhouse to do that tonight, but if you could pick maybe one or two of your favorite races or species from the book, which, by the way, I own and love. And I communicate. I've been communicating for a long time. So I really resonate. Yeah. And could you pick maybe one or two of your favorite species and give us a teaser?
I would. Let's see. Well, I do, Pleiadians for sure, but that's like a given, right? But I would, let me just flick through it here because some are. Well, I do love celestials a lot. We are actually going to be, we have interviewed a man in the documentary who spent 13 days locked in a room with an actual celestial who gave him all kinds of information. So we're going to get to learn about that because, you know, we have physical, astral, celestial. Celestial is where we become the Godhead. Let's see. Look at all these races. Oh, these were, you know, this race is really interesting. They're called Itapurians. And they, their solar system was Itapuria. And Itabira 1 was their former home that dried up of water. So they created another planet, which they went to another planet called Itabira 2, and they transferred all their life forms over to that planet. And at that time, they switched their diet from a solid diet to a liquid diet. So they visit the Amazon forest and congregate also. They set up their own little housing there in the middle of nowhere, and they congregate with the beings there. And what they do is they graft their fruit with our fruit. They like the cherimoya that was there, and they're always having to find different flavors to satisfy themselves, which is what I found was very interesting. And there, what was also interesting about them is that they had thin jawlines, rudimentary teeth, and small tongues, and they wear a guard on their upper and lower gums to disguise their deformed mouths because they stopped eating solid foods. And they wear fingertip gloves because they have no fingernails, because they lost those as well in doing so. They have 7 laws of cosmo philosophy. They have an Itapurian prayer, and again, this was through a real contactee who that Wendell Stevens went and spoke with and wrote a book about. My other one is, I think it's the Kardashians, not Kardashians. Let's see, there. Okay, let me just make sure that these are I always get them and the Clermers mixed up. Yeah, so what's interesting about this race is that what they do is when they come here, their commanders are in charge of this sector of the universe, and a lot of times what they do is they remove asteroids, because when they're doing travel within, if they come out, they don't want to hit something as well. So to be a part of it here, what they have to do is they have to come down to Earth, they have to integrate into a society, and they have to work for a period of at least 2 years. Now, I know that some of the Clarions did that as well. And in talking to that contactee, I know that some of the Lemurians did as well in talking to a contactee. And they find it fun and fascinating because they get to be Earth people. They get to discover what's going on here. They get to understand, how the people are and that kind of thing. So this particular guy was from the Kardashians. His name is Valdar, and he lived in Italy. And he befriended a couple of guys, but he knew that they were starseeds from his home world. So eventually he revealed himself to their shock and dismay, and they actually accepted it and and then started learning more about, their cosmic heritage and things of that nature. And so they get these sort of like little earth sabbaticals where they get to come down here and do that kind of thing. So that's fascinating. By the way, on one case, my friend Chris Bledsoe, who has the book out now, UFO of God, his abduction case and his contact with the Lady of Light, he took me through it, and I actually photographed one of the beings that abducted him when he was taking me through it. I could hear them rustling through the forest. His backyard was forest. Got the being on camera. We went back the next night because his kids wanted to take me and tell me their story, because they abandoned that house, by the way. I would have too. And half their stuff was still in it. And we heard stuff rustling in there. And one of the son's girlfriends caught a strange looking, almost lizard, almost kind of looking man or woman, not quite sure, on camera as well. I put that picture of mine in the back of the ET Almanac book. Of course, because it's printed in black and white, it's not so clear. But but those, I would say, those two races really fascinated me because I didn't know a lot about them. So, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Ross.
I mute myself. Okay, well, thank you, Craig, for a very detailed and exciting presentation. Yeah, a lot to learn, and a lot to observe and embody. That's awesome. Thanks. So you've been in the yes, you've been in this for a while, and looks like you have mentioned some very recognizable names like Ricardo Gonzalez.
Yes.
Awesome
He's
guy.
Awesome. Love him.
Oh, and his wife. I mean, it's just he is such a guy with a lot of knowledge, experience. He is experience. It's not just BS. It's a real McCoy. I have met him several times here in Crestone. And
oh yes. Did you go out when Entourage would come and bring the ships out for everyone to see?
Not that. No. But it was through 3 years, I think. So we had an event here. So it was a face-to-face, person-to-person. It's an amazing energy coming from him. That's all.
He's so genuine.
Bingo, genuine. Genuine. You can feel the energy coming from him, and it's and it makes sense because he is so aligned with what he is doing and what he is about. So I always appreciate those kind of people, individuals who really are experiencers. So I have two quick questions really. Do you know of Elena Denan?
I don't. No.
Okay. How about Jean-Charles Moyer or like a Tony Rodriguez?
No.
Any of those names? Okay.
No.
All right. So Andrew Bishago?
I've heard of him, and I think I may have watched one of his videos a very long time ago.
Because he is doing some kind of work like you do. So yes. Okay. Yes, it's a we are awakening as a human beings, as a species, I would say.
Yes.
And it's and I don't know if it's you have made some very interesting point, person who is not prepared or who is not ready, how it can affect that person's energy. See how, when we align, when we are in that oneness, it's meditation, then our frequency is vibrating at a certain level. But when a person is not there, it can be painful. It can be.
That's why I always say, everybody always asks me, what could I be doing? I said, what you came here to do is to work on yourself spiritually, to quicken your dualistic endeavors, to move towards being fully conscious, to living your life in beauty and integrity every single day. And then all the people around you will say, what are you doing differently?
Bingo.
Right? And then you can share some experiences with them. And like for me, I'll go, well, I can feel that they can only take this much. So I'll only share a little and say, well, might I suggest a book? Or might I suggest something to watch? And then just, you know, slowly getting their mind going. You don't want to overbog anybody because, you know, the overload could be quite frightening for them.
Yeah, it's right on. Yes, keep on rising our frequency, our consciousness, which really is, and this is our job. This is the only thing. If I can say anything to anybody on this call, yes, just keep on doing meditation, doing the inner work, doing the shadow work, doing everything that you can to rise your frequency, and you'll be right. And this is who we need on this planet.
That's right. Beautifully put, Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. On that, I'll finish.
Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome.
Okay, Miss Susie, let's bring you on up.
All right. Hi, Susie.
Hi. I tell you, Craig, I've been with Cosmic Conversations for a long time, and I am here every time because I play music. And I don't think, and there's some great speakers, and it's always very exciting. But I don't think I've said wow so many times with one speaker. I mean, you really have a fascinating life. And you know, with my life, I go, oh, I can't wait to see what happens. I'm kind of doing that with you now. I can't wait to see what happens with you. You've got that is so cool.
It's, you know, I think a lot of people ask me, how do you work in the film business and do the ET thing at the same time? And I said, well, I think when I came in, I realized that I needed to be in the film business so that we could bring awareness of all of these things, and you know, through the years making connections to make those things happen. Right? Like all of our kind of information, you know, Stranger at the Pentagon would be a film that if a studio got a hold of it, they would make Valiant Thor into Captain America, right? And I promised Dr. Frank that we would keep it legitimate and, you know, keep to the basic message, although we do have to take a little bit of liberties at the end because it is a movie which was already pre-approved by them and Valiant Thor. So, but, you know, it's, you know, it is. It's like I'm in both of them every single day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and I enjoy both. I mean, I enjoy both a lot. I love writing so much. You know, I love writing the books, and you know, I'm so thrilled with the prequel book that I'm writing now. I'm going to do 2 prequel books for the autobiography of an ET. And then do 1 final book in 7. So you know, all the, you know, everything they brought to me and all the stories and stuff, I said, God, you know, we got to go back and see how it all started. That's I really want to see that. So again, I sit down, I don't know what I'm going to write, and then they just flood it through me, and it's so exciting. To see, you know, I'm like half tired half the time, and I'm like, I gotta keep going. I gotta know.
Well, I was really tired tonight. I've had a really rough couple of days, but I kept you'd say something and I'd go, wow, every time, you know. So
there you go. See, now you're all jazzed up with energy. They do that for us.
Yeah. We applaud you. I mean, keep going.
Thank you.
Really so beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you know, in the autobiography of extraterrestrial books, I mean, I worked with an artist. Each book has 50 to 80 artist renderings of the extraterrestrials, their home worlds, inside, outside their spaceships. In the prequel book, I'm doing the same thing. I'm gonna all of that, because it's just so rich when you get to see it visually and see it on the page. It's a whole experience for the reader.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll-
It's awakening. It helps people to awaken. Yeah.
brilliant. Thank you so much for what you're
You're
doing.
welcome. You're
Beautiful.
welcome.
Thank you, Susie. All right. We have one question in here from Allie, and I hope I pronounce it correct. She said, I'm not sure how to spell this, but have you heard of a planet called, is it Titara? If I'm saying that incorrectly, Allie?
It is called Tartaria. It used to be a land. They say it's a mystical land. It's a real land. It was somewhere after the Diluvian era, I think so. Yeah, it's called Tartaria.
I've never heard of that either.
I've never heard of it. No, I remember Dr. Frank telling me that Valiant Thor told him the very first land here, it was something called like Atello or something like that, and they were very they were all created beings and all of that. And then of course after a certain point, some of them wanted higher positions and power, and that's when it all broke down, just like in normal things. So
right. Let's see, Allie said that it's different than that it's about 13,000 light years away. Honey, can you just come off of mute and say the name of the planet? I don't think I see her. Okay, Allie.
She may not be able to.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I've not heard of it. So.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Wow. I can't believe time has gone by so fast, Craig.
It does go by fast. Wow, look at that.
It really does go by fast. I have enjoyed every single word that you have shared. Joan, did you have a question? I saw Joan pop up. No? Okay.
Well, I asked my question about the Alpha Centaurians, and I do know about Ricardo, and I love him and read both of his English books and may even wade into one of his Spanish ones. Although my Spanish is pretty poor because I'm wanting to know more about water. He said something about the Apunians or something. He says there are things we have to discover about water that have to do with our spiritual evolution that I want to know about. But we have this case in Montana of a man who said he was from Alpha Centauri in 1952. So I just read Stranger at the Pentagon. In fact, there are two versions of it. There's The Stranger at the Pentagon, which is, the copyright is 67, I think. And it's very different from the 1991.
It is, yeah. There were three translations of it over the years, and there was even a very first book that Dr. Frank wrote right after it. That's not even gettable anymore. It was more of a very small leaflet book that just told of his story of meeting Valiant Thor. And then that first book came out in '67. Then I think another one came out in the '70s, and then the last one in the '90s, which was a revision.
Yeah, cool. I have just loved every minute of this, Craig. Since I found out about your almanac, and I saw Stranger at the Pentagon the movie when you premiered it. I think at
did you come out to the theater in Burbank?
No, this was at Fort McDowell, I think, at the International UFO Film thing, and with the conference that was there.
UFO Congress?
Yeah, but it was a few years back.
Yeah, that was several years ago. Yeah, we did. There was like 500 people in that audience, remember?
I don't remember things very well, but
yeah, it's okay. I do, because I was like, wow, there's a lot of people in here.
Well, I just loved the movie even then. It kind of,
Thank
I was
you.
vaguely aware of it because I've been very interested in those early 50s contactees. It was so
Yeah.
amazing what was going on then. And it breaks my heart that it's been so covered up and dismissed and forgotten in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So I love that people are bringing it back to life.
Back. That's right. That's
I
right.
plan to order all of your books. Can't wait.
Oh, thank you. I'll be happy to sign them for you too.
And I'm sorry my camera isn't working. I have a new computer and I don't know how to, anyway, otherwise I'd love to, be a smiling part of this conversation, but now
It's okay. I'm like not tech savvy either. It took me a long time just to figure out how to do this.
well, that makes me feel better. Yeah. Anyway, any other Alpha Centaurians? Because as far as I know, the ones that Ricardo is in touch with are clearly much more advanced, way beyond where
Very
we are.
advanced. Very advanced. Look up Sixto Paz Wells.
I know him.
Yes.
I've read his one English book
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
spoken with him.
Yeah, I've met him several times, and Ricardo as well. Sixto is in the documentary talking about them, and Ricardo is in the ET Almanac book. So,
And he also talked about the Apunians.
yes, well, the Apunians are the Alpha Centaurians. So the Apunians appeared near their mountain called Apu. So they immediately started calling them the Apunians.
Uh-huh.
So that's where Apunians come from, but they're really Alpha Centaurians.
Right, but there's 3 different stars, and who knows how many planets. And the people that the guy that was here in 1952, he said there were thousands of them from his planet on the Earth at that time, but they aren't that far ahead of us. They're maybe only 300 years ahead of us.
Yes.
Very different than the Apunians.
Yes. Yes, I think, that goes to say with all races and different worlds and planets, some people are farther advanced and that kind of thing. And, some people are interdimensional, they can be up and then they can slow their energy down and come and be physical if they wanted to. Some that are very like that, especially the created beings, like Valiant Thor can do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, this guy called himself Johnny Marshall, and he said he was on Earth looking for a wife, and he wanted a blonde wife because he don't have very many blondes where he's from, and he wanted to go to Mars because this group from his planet, their planet was drying up, and so they were planning to create a colony on Mars. And I think that Elena Denon actually says that her contact, Thor Hahn, said something about a colony of Alpha Centaurians on Mars. So I don't know.
Well, Laura Eisenhower has talked about the whole Martian civilization for quite a long time. Yeah, so you can check her out too.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joan.
Thanks,
So
Joan.
glad that you joined us. Okay.
Oh, I'm so glad I did too. It's really wonderful, wonderful.
Bye, Joan.
Thank you. All right, we have one more question before we close. All right, Mr. Gary.
Hi, Craig. Gary Gilman here from Aruba in the dark because I don't have any lights on my porch. I wanted to comment. Hi, Joan. I had met Ricardo Gonzalez, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago in Paola Harris's conference down at Laughlin. And I gave his book to Sheila years ago about the planet Apu. But I've since listened to you many times, Craig, on the Stargate Roundtable with Marita Pickett.
Yes.
And have you heard from Marita recently? I actually invited her to present on this program.
Oh, no, I haven't because, she retired. And, sometimes when I go back and do it, I tell her and then she'll just come on just to be there, because I'm coming on because I've just adored her throughout all the years. So.
Yeah. Well, it was great tuning into all your talks on her program and a night at the round table since then also. So nice to see you on this.
Thank you
It
so
was-
much.
Yeah.
We love Sheila.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks,
And
Gary.
one other thing, Sheila.
Mhm.
I just want to say Don Hoodnell on the program here was giving away copies of his book, his new book at the Portal to Ascension conference. And I just finished reading that yesterday. And I want to plug his book. It was fantastic. I couldn't put
Hold
it
it
down.
up. Hold it up, Don.
And-
Let's see the cover.
I don't have it with me, but Don, if you have
Oh
your
no,
book,
Don's got it right there. Oh, great.
it's
What's
a
it called? What's it called, Don? There we go. A Star Seed Lost in the Dark. That's great.
That is a fantastic book. I couldn't put it down. And Don, I'd love to talk to you more about that sometime. I'll get your contact info from Sheila.
Beautiful.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
Greg, thank you. Thanks for a
You're
nice presentation.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, I have Craig's information in here. Thanks to Bridget. Thank you so much.
Thank
If
you,
you'll go
Bridget.
through the chat, it's www.autobiographyofAnET.com. Check that out. Order your books.
Yes,
I can't wait. I'm going to
please.
get on there tonight myself.
Yeah, and if you need, think of it for gifts for your ET friends.
There you go.
You know, those are good.
Beautiful.
People like offbeat, different things. So, and by the way, when you go on either that website or Stranger at the Pentagon, there's a subscribe button. So if you want to know more about, when the documentary and things like that's going to come out, subscribe on Autobiography of on ET.com. And if you subscribe on Stranger at the Pentagon, you'll get all the latest up-to-date news on the movie, the feature film, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much again for being here. I absolutely love to hear you present. I always learn something new. And it was great to be able to meet you in person this past February at the Conscious Life Expo.
Yes,
You get a
wasn't that
Craig
great?
hug, so it was awesome.
I love that. That was so
Yeah.
fun.
So thank you so much. And thanks for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here. I just want to remind you, if you are not signed up to be on the Galactic Alliance mailing list, please go to our website at thegalacticalliance.org. Sign up to be on our mailing. If you are not already a subscriber to the Conscious Awakening Network, please do so. You can download our free app. All of the content is free. You can go to your phone stores and download the app, or you can go to our website, watch the content. Of course, Cosmic Conversations is on Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, as well as on YouTube. And pretty soon, we're going to be adding some new things. We're going to be unveiling that actually to our host on May the 20th. And we'll be having lots of new services, lots of new offerings, a brand new look and feel. And I just can't wait. So the 20th is coming up. Hopefully we'll have this up and running by July 1. So that'll be our little celebration, 4th of July celebration. So again, check us out, consciousawakeningnetwork.org. Go visit and sign up on the galacticalliance.org. And until we are back together again next week, namaste and much love to everyone. So thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Have a
Bye-bye,
great
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Big hug.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Thank you